Good morning, all. Welcome to the Carroll County Commissioners' open session for February 13th. And as we love to do, we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Priority, Carol, we started with,
I think so.
I think
for
so.
some reason, I
So
could
Commissioner
never.
Rothstein, your turn.
Just a couple things. One, thanks to our DPW and our roads crew for all that they're doing. It's challenging times to get out there and work as one and ensure the safety of our community by taking care of our roads. And the leadership that we have here in Carroll County government in making those decisions, sometimes early in the morning, sometimes late at night, to determine whether, the road should be taken care of and the workforce should be in and out. So just an appreciation. The second is, as you know, Commissioner Kyler and I participate in the Maryland Association of Counties. Every Wednesday, we talk about legislation that is pertaining to Carroll County and other jurisdictions. Most of it has to do with ensuring our voices are heard, that we have the ability as Carroll County to do what we believe is right for Carroll Countyans and push back on any mandates that the state is putting on us and causing us to fund them. So we're, always trying to work our independence. And it's very interesting because it's along with the other jurisdictions as well, whether it's Montgomery County or St. Mary's County or Carroll County or wherever. We're all on the same sheet of music, and that is to let our communities run our communities. And on Monday evenings, we participate with the rural counties, talking about the legislation that's going to be discussed on the Wednesday. That's important because there are more rural counties, which we're a part of, in MACO than there are others. So we have an equal, actually an above equal, balanced voice when we all come together. And we've been very fortunate that we have adjusted recommendations from the rural county's perspective and from Carroll County's perspective as legislation's going through the state. That would not be possible if it wasn't for all of us working together for MACO. So that's been a plus, and I believe Ms. Meister will be in later or sometime later talk about some of the legislation that we discussed on Wednesday. So that's all I have.
Oh, thank you, Commissioner. Well, good morning, everybody. I'd like to associate myself, first of all, with the comments that Commissioner Rothstein made, thanking our Public Works, DPW, and everybody who kept the county in operation during the snowstorm. My own schedule ended up getting altered because of the weather, so I'll be very quick this morning, just two things. First of all, next week on Wednesday, February 19th from 1 p.m. to 7 p.m., the Tawnytown Branch Public Library will host the open house for the District 1 open house for the 2035 Carroll County Master Plan, the document which envisions and helps guide the county in the coming years. So we certainly want to hear what you have to say and what you think the future should be like, and I will be there for a part of it, and I certainly hope that you will consider attending as well. There's more information about this on the county website, and there is an event page for this on Facebook as well that you can access. And the second very quick thing is that this weekend is my mom's birthday. She routinely watches our meetings. Typically, she watches them live. She goes out, she takes care of the horses, and she comes back in and she watches our meetings. So, Mom, if you happen to be watching this morning, I love you. I couldn't have asked God for a better mom, and I don't know what I'd do without you. So happy birthday, Mom. And that's it for me this morning.
Mr. Gordon.
Thank
top
you.
that.
I don't know if I can top somebody's mom. That might be a bit much. But anyway, I'll try. So last Thursday, I attended the master plan open house at the Carroll Community College. Was well attended. Even given this snow, it was actually very well attended by the public. It was great to see people turning out, asking questions, and interacting with the staff. And as Commissioner Vigliotti just mentioned, there's one coming up in his district quite soon. Also want to congratulate Billy Live for being named by Baltimore Sun as one of the top 25 Black Marylanders to watch. Many people know Billy for his dedication in the community, being at supporting youth and other individuals in the community with his organization Find Your Purpose. So just want to congratulate him for that. Also wanted to congratulate interim executive director Lynn Davis, Andy Lucchini, and everyone else involved at CCYSB that held a very successful chocolate ball over the weekend. Obviously, when you're interacting in our community, one of the big things is our nonprofits. So anytime you can come out and support a nonprofit, be it a gala, be it whatever type of event, it's a great opportunity to see these kind of events occur, have fun, but better yet, help our communities. And as anybody that knows, CCYSB does a lot with mental health and is definitely something much needed in our community. Last, I will mention that on Monday night, Celine Steckel, who is our Citizen Services Director, staff, including Ed Singer, who's involved with the, I'm losing it here, the program that we're setting up with within the county, and myself attended the City Council member of Council meeting of Westminster to discuss the Enough Act. Local Management Board is looking at a number of areas within the community, two being Westminster and Union Bridge, to assist with youth and opportunities there. So it was a good conversation with the city, it was a good presentation, and look forward to their assistance with that. And that's all from me. Thank you.
Mr. Garing.
Good morning, Carroll County. Just a few notes. First of all, I want to reiterate the first responder and military fair taking place at the Carroll Career Tech Center on February 27th from 6 to 8. Open to middle schoolers and high schoolers. So again, I will put in a plug for that. I would encourage everybody to get your middle schooler and high schooler there. There are a lot of opportunities in this county that many of us could only have imagined when we were going through high school here in Carroll County, if that's what you were doing. So get over there and check things out. It just gives your young person just one more opportunity to consider as they get ready for graduation and head off to college or trade school or whatever they like to do. I also want to, we're on the topic of birthdays. My oldest daughter will turn 21 on February 16th. So good morning. Good morning. See, I can't believe I've got a 21-year-old. So we all know what that means. So happy birthday, Emma. Your mother and I are very proud of you. She's currently in a nursing program going through FCC, which is associated with a couple colleges, and she's doing great, and we're really proud of her. I also want to just briefly bring up a topic that I think, we live in Maryland, so it's impossible to escape some of the things that are going on at the federal level. And I think a lot of us, whether you live in Maryland or wherever you live, you're making a mistake by not recognizing the fact that this is clearly a new age in government, and things are changing quickly. We're seeing things we've never seen before. And there is a tremendous focus on cutting of waste, cutting of spendings, things that we don't need, whether that's saving a couple $100 million, not making pennies, or shutting down an entire agency that can't seem to conduct an audit of its own money. I think that, unfortunately, that's not going to make it over to the state of Maryland. I think there needs to be a lot of reflection there. And, of course, there's no reason why counties can't do the same thing. So I think that's an important thing going forward. I can't tell you how disappointing it is, however, to see most of the Maryland elected officials, that's the senators, and those are the two House of Representative individuals that represent our county, out there in the front, and it's talking about how these cuts And this reflection upon the federal budget is an awful thing. It's gotten to the point where they're, not these people in particular, but people are advocating violence. People are advocating a level of resistance that is completely inappropriate. All the federal government's trying to do is rein in spending. And there's not a single person who shouldn't recognize that that affects you personally. And as we go through our daily lives, we're trying to make ends meet, literally make ends meet sometimes in Maryland, because it is a very unaffordable place to live. We all recognize that, at least I do, even in Carroll County. But there's a lot of things going on. It's a sea change of sorts. And to see some of our elected officials out there saying the things they're saying in public simply because we're trying to account for money is, in my view, unfortunate and inappropriate. It is, if you look at some of the things that, I guess Doge is the topic, the term, the agency, but if you look at what they're trying to do, they're simply identifying things that nobody can really account for. So my message to Carroll Countyans is this affects us all, true, but don't feel as though this is something that's happening just 50 miles away and doesn't impact your life and involve your budget as well. If they can take enough money out of the federal budget, that opens a lot of opportunities for our area, and I think that's the problem. I think that's what a lot of our elected officials aren't seeing. They're not seeing the forest through the trees. What happens when you cut a lot of this spending? Tax cuts, growth, entrepreneurship, which we're going to talk about here in a minute. So it seems as though a lot of our elected officials are just lost. They don't know. They don't have a message. So their message is going to be, this is awful, and it's going to kill people, and things that are just so hyperbolic, it's ridiculous. But pay attention, pay close attention, and demand the same thing that people are demanding of the federal government. Demand it of your local government. Demand it of your towns, of your county, of your state as well. Don't sit on the sidelines, and don't act like this is just something that's happening 45 miles away that doesn't affect you at all, because it affects all of us. It's all our money, every penny of it. So, and that's all for me.
Good comments. Thank you. I'll start with weather. Thank you to the Public Works, facilities people, and everybody that got in and out safely to this building and other buildings. It's the weather's tough, and I think we try to adapt to it. It's tough on the school kids. It's tough on work people, and I really want to thank county employees for stepping up and doing the best they can to make sure we're safe on the roads and safe in our parking lots. Commissioner Rothstein mentioned Mako, and Monday night we had the Royal Mako meeting. Yesterday we had committee meetings and the legislative committee meetings, and it is so much going on, and Commissioner Guerin's comments were very, very good about what's going on with the federal government. But what worries me, we got our state, the same, you mentioned senators and congressmen, we've got state elected people spending money to fight DC. We're short of money, but we have money to fight. And it just seems like sometimes maybe we ought to work together instead of just fighting. But Mako tries to do that well for us, the counties and local control and local jurisdictions, and it's hard in Maryland. And it's this year, I'm just curious, between Blueprint and other things going on, the state budget, the federal cuts, this could be the perfect storm that really, really hits us hard in Carroll County. And we got to do the best we can, and yeah, we need to look at cuts, but we need to look at quality of life and services that we provide. I know with the weather and snow, you see it on social media that some of the roads weren't cleaned quickly enough and all that, but what do we want to spend to make sure that I can run out and get a gallon of milk? You know, it's what's worth the cost and what's worth the risk of them too. Also, on enough negative, now on positive notes, Boy Scouts were at Emmanuel Lutheran, and our Environmental Advisory Council had given us a lot of literature for specifically for Scouts, but also for them. And it looks like I'm going to try to meet some Cub Scouts, maybe even tomorrow, and talk with them. And it's so great. You hear so much about negative stuff, and Scouts, academics at school, extracurriculars at school. There's so many 4-H ag people. There's so many positives in Carroll County of kids doing it, and the Scouts are a good example of that. Carroll County Public School, they had their meeting last night. I think they're going to come to us and ask for more money, even though they promised they wouldn't. And it's getting desperate to look at, again, what do you cut? If you don't have more revenue, what do you cut laptops? Do you cut outdoor school? Do you cut other stuff? Do you cut positions? All the counties around us are cutting positions, even though what we hear in Annapolis is we need more educators, but Blueprint is just so backwards. It's causing us to cut educators. It's not doing what it was promised to do. And I just like to encourage everybody. Carroll County Public Schools was probably on the front edge of questioning Blueprint and where it was going to put us. I think other counties are now looking at the same thing, but my opinion, Carroll County Public Schools has limited resources. Blueprint's mandating that they do certain things that I don't think's wise for Carroll County, but we're not allowed to have local control. We're not allowed to have even results analyzed. AIB analyzes how much money you throw at a problem, not how do you fix it. And the people that are upset about this, which should be everybody, you need to talk to our delegation. You need to talk to our senators. Blueprint is a state law, and unless somebody in Annapolis grows up and is able to say, we might have goofed up, we need to adjust this, I'm not sure we're going to see anything. And if the state law doesn't change and CCPS decides they want to comply with it as best as possible, it's going to be hard for Carroll County. And so please holler to the state, anybody you know down there, our delegation, our senators, any other delegation and people and senator people you know, the governor's office, we need help. We're getting into budget. It's that time of the year, and it's going to be depressing. It's going to be tough, and we're constantly looking at cuts, and we're constantly looking at what we need to do to make things work, and it's hard. It's hard, and I know it just seems like we'll look at things that we can trim. And it just feels like it's not a big issue. It's a little issue, and little issues all add up. But it's going to be excuse me, hard. It is wrestling season. I want to congratulate South Carroll High School for winning the Carroll County Dual Meet Championship, and tonight, hopefully, if it doesn't snow, they're going to start regional duels, and now it's Carroll County against the rest of the state. So I want to wish all the Carroll County teams good luck in their matches with their regions and if they make it to states. And we've got some county schools that should make it through tonight to the next night and maybe even to the finals. So good luck, everybody. And thank you, guys, and good comments today. And I think you have a proclamation.
I do, yes, Commissioner Colley. We've got some folks who want to come on up, and so what are we talking about? Next week is National Entrepreneurship Week. So before I read the proclamation, yeah, it's tough. I think I actually read this one last year as well. So before I read the proclamation, could you please introduce yourself and talk to us just a little bit about the things we have going on in the county that deal with entrepreneurship, because I know there's some things going on.
Absolutely. Thank you. Good morning. Thank you for having us today. We are celebrating National Entrepreneurship Week. We're going to say that several times, and hopefully I'll get it straight. This week was actually founded in 2006. It celebrated the third week of February, which actually begins this Saturday, February 15th. And the purpose of the week is really to recognize entrepreneurs who drive economic growth, innovation, and job creation in our community. Especially here in Carroll County, we know we have many small businesses. Small businesses, entrepreneurs that have become big businesses, some legacy companies, Balgers, Generations, C.J. Miller. We have Strauss Corporation, Ridge Engineering. Both manufacturing companies were founded in the garages of their homes. You know, combine those four companies, there are several hundred positions. So, and then we have, the state's shining example, Under Armour, which started in the basement of Kevin Plank's grandmother. He now employs over 17,000 people and over $700 billion in revenues. So, pin our money on a local company to aspire to that same height. So small businesses are really the cornerstone of entrepreneurship. We do our department partners with the Small Business Development Administration. Darren Payton is here with me today, and he's going to talk about some of the small business services and partnerships that we work with.
Yeah, so thank you for having us, and thank you for your continued support of all of us, all the entrepreneurs, and our program, the SBDC. So as Paige mentioned, I'm Darren Payton. I'm the Assistant Director of the SBDC Northern Region. And our goal and mission is to support entrepreneurs, to help entrepreneurs navigate all they have to navigate to either start their business or grow their business. Now, we don't do that in a vacuum. We do that with many partners that we work with. We do have a few partners I want to mention here today. We have Kim Samuelson here from Magic, the Executive Director of Magic. We actually partnered together. We do every other week. We had to cancel it yesterday because of the snow, but a thing called 1 Million Cups. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that. We basically have one, sometimes two, presenters, small businesses that present their business, and what we then do is ask them, how can we as a community help you? So that's something that we do. We also have Molly Sherman, the Executive Director of the Carroll Tech and Innovation Center. They provide a hub of technology entrepreneurs and businesses to, as they say, move technology forward. We also have Mike McMullen. He's the one sitting right back here, if you guys don't know. The president of the Carroll County Chamber, and I definitely have to throw a plug in for the Carroll Biz Challenge. Yeah, sorry, my mind just went blank there. For the Carroll Biz Challenge, coming up in August. We just had the kickoff. Was it last week? Yeah, last week. Very well attended. The good thing about that was like 3/4 of the room raised their hand when asked who's going to actually apply for that. Also with the SBDC, we're not just a county-wide, we actually are statewide, well, we're nationwide, but the Maryland SBDC, we also have partners within the SBDC that we have access to for all of our entrepreneurs. As a matter of fact, last year, we partnered and leveraged our partnership with what's called the Maryland Business Opportunity Center, which is part of the SBDC, to provide around $25,000 in scholarships and stipends to entrepreneurs to attend classes to help them start and grow their businesses. Yeah, we also did different programs, e-commerce program we did. Every month, we partner with what's now the Carroll County Workforce Development. We offer a Ready, Set, Go workshop. Are you ready to be an entrepreneur? So we do that every single month, the fourth Thursday of every month. So we offer that. I think that's some of the kind of things. So again, I just want to thank you for having us and recognizing entrepreneurship as really the backbone of a community. And again, thank you for your continued support for the SBDC.
Well, it certainly is. I don't think there'll be any argument up here to that fact. Should I go ahead and read the proclamation? Okay, so I'll read the proclamation, and my colleagues have anything to add, I know they'll do so. So again, next week, starting on Saturday actually, is the National Entrepreneurship Week. Entrepreneurship is essential for the growth and prosperity of Carroll County, Maryland, and the entire country. Acknowledging this importance, National Entrepreneurship Week was established in 2006 as a congressionally chartered week dedicated to empowering entrepreneurs across the United States. And the annual initiative was relaunched in 2017 to bring together a network of partners to educate, engage, and build equitable access to America's entrepreneurship ecosystem. And the mission says, national, yeah, that's interesting. The mission says it democratizes entrepreneurship by empowering all voices of entrepreneurship across the country through education, connection, and collaboration. And the vision, it envisions a national entrepreneurship ecosystem that is as diverse and as rich as the citizens that are a part of it. And most jobs created through the United States have come from the creative efforts of entrepreneurs and small businesses, and Carroll County supports over 4,500 small businesses that are the backbone of our county, with Main Street entrepreneurs serving as models of success, giving inspiration for others to follow in their footsteps. And the Carroll County Small Business Development Center offers a monthly Ready, Set, Go business startup virtual training course where participants learn the nuts and bolts of becoming an entrepreneur, along with no-cost business counseling for all new and existing entrepreneurs, and providing training and business counseling to new and growing enterprises expands the knowledge, skills, and abilities of Carroll County citizens to embrace successful entrepreneurship, which is crucial to the long-term growth of our county. National Entrepreneurship Week provides an opportunity to focus on successful entrepreneurs in Carroll County's growing entrepreneurial ecosystem. And Carroll County residents are encouraged to continue their support of local small businesses and thank them for their courage, commitment, and contributions to the community. Therefore, we, the Board of Carroll County Commissioners, do hereby proclaim February 15th through the 22nd as National Entrepreneurship Week.
Thank you.
Commissioners, any comments?
Just like to share that my view of entrepreneurship is more focused on culture and attitude, not just small business. It's methods of finding solutions for problems that are in our community and, you know, kind of putting it all out there, thinking outside the box and coming up with ways to provide solutions needed. I mean, that's, you know, Under Armour is a great example of how that started with Kevin. You know, that's what entrepreneurship is. And whatever we can do to recognize that, accept risk if appropriate, understanding the goals and added and the you know, long-term vision and design that with them, that's entrepreneurship to me, is putting it all out there. You know, so look forward to the continued entrepreneurship in our community. We are a great breeding ground for it. You know, entrepreneurship in agriculture is needed, you know, and necessary. And I think we're going those directions as well. But two words that come to mind for me is, well, I guess three: culture, attitude, and risk. And that's what entrepreneurship's about. So, at least in my view.
So I think Commissioner Rothstein said very well. I would also add that, entrepreneurship, what it is and what it, the heights to which it might ascend, to me, is proof of the promise of America and the reality that the American dream is still very much alive and is still very much something that anybody might aspire to accomplish. And the fact that we have such attention that we pay to our economy, to the business community, that we, all of us attend as many different events and functions as we can. We visit as many businesses as we can. We partner with you guys wherever we can to promote and to help these businesses however we might. And that is proof that the promise that we have, not just in America, but in Carroll County, is real. And I cannot thank all of you enough for what it is that you do for our businesses. So I'm grateful that we're doing this proclamation this week.
And I love Carroll County and the businesses in it. I remember C.J. Miller being very small, and Mel and Clara Miller actually starting it, and Ridge Engineering being on Main Street in Hampstead from his house. And it's just amazing how Carroll County can be a culture for people that want to build a business and do really well. And it's awesome. And thank you.
I appreciate all the hard work and involvement you all do within the community. Obviously, entrepreneurship from a business standpoint is wonderful. It adds jobs, funding into the economy, but it also adds a lot more. I mean, you look at a lot of the small businesses in the community and their families. You have people that moved here, took a shot, opened a business. Easy example would be Covalent Spirits on Main Street. That was a big dream for Jen for some time. Whether or not that was going to happen was anybody's guess. But, the fortitude of people in our communities and I think even more importantly, the positive attitudes of how they band together. It's always the one thing I find somewhat amusing. You'll have people in the community, they'll take an attitude of, oh, it's this restaurant versus that restaurant. Most of the restaurant owners I know all interact with each other because they're trying to figure how can I up my game and help the community. More is better. I think we're living in a wonderful time when it comes to entrepreneurship because, technology's added so much, as has so many other things that give people much more opportunity than when, you were looking back in the late 1800s and, it was horse and buggy showing up to try to sell your wares. Which some of my relatives did do in Richmond, Virginia back then, I will say that. But just truly appreciate everything, and I think we've got a really solid group of entrepreneurs in the county, and I'll look forward to seeing what they turn up with the challenge this year, Mike. Looking forward to it.
Commissioners, we are doing a few other things. We did add a page to our website featuring local entrepreneurs. So we selected one business from each municipality. And so we've featured them on this website, and it gets into, how they got started, where they found success, some of the challenges. And we'll also be doing social media posts next week as well in recognition of the entrepreneurs. And again, we, Economic Development, Small Business Development Center, encourage all Carroll Countyans to get out there, show your support for our small businesses. You mentioned Covalent Spirits, Collision Course, 1623 Brewery, in all of your districts, and you'll see them if you go to the website, carrollbiz.org. And again, we appreciate your time and support today.
Photo?
Yes, Mike.
Just for the photo. Thanks.
We thought we'd surprise you and bring Greg up today.
That's a camera. All right, everybody say government cheese. All right, hopefully one of those is good. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Thank you again. Thank you. Sorry. Thank you, guys. I'll see you guys later.
Hey, Roberta, is Pam here?
No, she's doing this virtually.
Oh, so she's on? Oh,
So she'll be,
okay.
Cool.
Technology.
okay, thank you very much. And next item, legislative update, and I think Pam Meister's joining us virtually.
Maybe.
He's here.
Cool.
I'm here.
There she is.
How you doing?
Good, thanks. How are you all today?
Well, thank you.
Great. I am just going to pull up the presentation so you can see it on my screen. And we have a lot to go through today. I also did not include a lot of legislation because there's so much coming through. The deadline has passed for introduction without bills going to the Rules Committee, so there's quite a bit. I tried to pull some things aside that I can bring up next week as well that aren't having hearings, so we're just going to get started and jump right in. Let me just share my screen here, make sure that you can see the slides, and then we'll go through it all.
See your slide.
Okay. Okay. Is it still there?
No.
There
Yes.
we go. Okay.
Very good.
Let's get started. All right, so we passed the bill introduction date, as I mentioned, and now we are looking ahead to the 40th day, which is the green bag appointments. That's when the governor's appointments are submitted that require approval by the General Assembly. And then we'll be looking ahead towards a bunch of other dates that we can talk about later in more detail. But basically, some committee reporting dates are coming up where bill hearings have to take place so that they can let everyone else know what's going on the floor and move things through the legislative process. You'll see that we've had quite a significant number of bills since last week introduced. We're over 3,000 bills. That's a lot of legislation, and which is why they have all of these rules in place that require different hoops to go through if you introduce late to make sure there's adequate time to go through the process, to have a hearing, for people to weigh in, and all of that fun stuff. But I'm going to start off and just give you a quick update on the bills that you all are prioritizing for the county and have introduced. This bill, SB 415, as you may recall from last week, had a hearing. It's about the unpaid property taxes. The hearing went really well, and I had mentioned that there was a letter of opposition that came through with concerns from the Maryland Transportation Builders Association. They were worried about extra burdens and making the process longer on the applicants. They also thought that potentially this was introduced for like a single case, and it wasn't like a broad problem, because that happens quite a bit in Annapolis. We were able to get this letter to Senator Reedy, who's going to pass it on to the Budget and Taxation Committee and also to the House. Delegate Tomlinson will make sure that it gets to the appropriate people in the House as well. But the letter addresses these concerns and basically shows that we are not in Carroll County intending to impose any burden on the applicant, that there's an internal process that's going to take place that will speed things along and keep things moving, just to make sure the taxes are paid, and that the only hiccup is going to come if somebody hasn't paid, and that's the intention of the bill. We also noted that if there is any concerns of ambiguity in the language, that we're willing to talk about clarifying amendments. So I don't think this is going to be an issue. And that's, I think, important. Also, this bill was reassigned to a different committee than we thought in the House. It's now going to be in the Environment and Transportation Committee, so we don't have a hearing date yet, at least as of last night. So I will keep you posted on that bill. The others that we talked about all are at status quo. There's no update from last week, so we'll move forward. We also talked about quite a few other bills last week, and I've listed them here. They either have, on the right-hand side, as you can see, have a hearing coming up in the original House, meaning the bill where the bill was introduced, or they've received a hearing but not had a vote, which are a couple of the bills that you introduced, as well as the public school construction renovation bill about solar canopies and school parking lots. So as we continue through the session, I'll update you on these bills and the others that we're going to go through today so that you know how things are moving along. But we've got quite a few to go through today. So these are some things that were all brought up at MACO's legislative committee and some at the rural coalition meeting that Commissioner Rothstein mentioned earlier and that Commissioner Kyler also participates in. So I'm going to take you through some of the highlights. I tend to talk fast, so feel free to interrupt if you have questions, or we can take them at the end. But I have a lot to go through, so we'll keep going. Michael Sanderson with MACO brought up the issue of the family leave alternative snag that he called it is coming up, and he will be keeping everyone in MACO updated. But it's just important to know that the State Department of Labor has informed advisors that employees must begin withholding payments for a state family leave plan starting in early July. And counties are looking for alternative ways to face this challenge. There are a lot of different ways that are being looked at to resolve this issue and to be put through the budget reconciliation process. So I'll keep you abreast of that as we learn more, but I wanted to bring that to your attention. Another hot issue, everything's coming back to money this session, as we talked about, and you're going to hear a lot about that as it relates to some of the legislation today, is the federal budget and Medicaid concerns. There's a possible change coming up where the Medicaid cost sharing agreement between the federal government and the states is going to shift. And if this happens and reduces the share to the federal government and Maryland has to pay more, it would adjust the current 50-50 split, and meaning significantly higher costs to the states. Even if it was just a couple of percentage points, that could mean $1 billion that the state has to find, which will then exacerbate all of the issues that you're already hearing about. And even though this is a federal issue, it's important to be aware of what's going on, because if the shift comes down to the state, again, it can come down to Carroll County and other local governments. We should know more in the next couple of weeks about what this is looking like, but this is a big one to kind of stay aware of. Another very hot issue that is coming up that has mixed consequences on local governments are the energy bill packages in the presiding officer's package that he's introduced. There's 3 bills that we're going to go through today, and I'll explain to you what each one does and the significance to counties. This is something that MACO is asking elected officials to be really aware of what's going on, and people across the state too, that if it's something that you have a priority for, we should definitely consider weighing in on, potentially with letters and even showing up to the upcoming joint hearing that's scheduled later this month, and having you testify. They're going to provide talking points to elected officials who want to testify, because they want backup to MACO's team to make sure that the voices are heard on these bills, because these are getting a lot of attention, and there are some significant consequences.
Hey, Pam, take a breather for a second. Just go back to that last slide if you can,
Yes.
because that's a really important one. The joint hearing, I believe, is February 28th, and
Yes.
MACO is inviting anybody down to participate, kind of like in a work group with MACO and others to testify in this. But if we do, that's great. Pam, if you're available, that's awesome. If one of us are and would like to participate, but I think at a minimum, putting together, as Mr. Vigliotti would say, a letter to MACO could be a good idea, and this would be a good target to focus our attention on. So, okay.
I'm going to go through each of the bills individually, and so we can address them as a package or individually, depending on what you also to hear more.
Okay.
I am a man of letters.
Yes, you are.
No, it's effective. It's important to weigh in.
See, Pam laughed. Pam knows.
It is. I mean,
Yeah.
it's honestly, when you write letters, if nothing else, it just creates noise and volume in each of the members' offices that receive them, which is important. And when you
Ma'am,
start
don't
to get-
encourage him. Keep going.
Well, no, but it's true. I will encourage.
Just keep
because
going.
I've
You're
seen-
encouraging
I've
him.
seen how important it is and how effective it is in getting your voice heard. So.
Thank you, Pam.
And why are you calling me Pam, Commissioner Rothstein?
What's that?
Why are you calling me Pam all of a sudden today?
You know, right now you look like a Pam, but if Amy is more appropriate, I will always be there
ahead.
for you. So,
Okay. All right, so let's move along. House Bill 1035, Senate Bill 937, it's the Next Generation Energy Act. This bill focuses on long-term energy infrastructure changes, including natural gas and nuclear energy advancements. It's not immediately impactful at the county level, but it does hold significant importance for the state's future energy plans. And the development of natural gas facilities will focus on eventually converting to more environmentally friendly fuels. Small modular nuclear reactors are still in the development phase, but will be used in the future to address energy demand. And MACO has decided to remain neutral and take no position on this bill because it really doesn't affect county operations at this time. And it's just part of the package, so it's important to know about. This next bill is the one that's more significant, and MACO has chosen to oppose it. This bill is very contentious, and it has significant impact on solar and battery energy sectors. It favors the solar industry, reducing county authority in regulating solar projects, and includes some taxation issues. While promoting energy storage, the bill fails to address important public safety concerns as it relates to utility scale batteries. And the bill also allows counties to establish community solar programs, but this provision is unusual since no jurisdiction has requested this authority. MACO is opposing this because it's pro-industry stance. It lacks proper public safety standards and its potential for negative impacts on local control. It's likely to pass in some form. So MACO is planning to focus on mitigating the impact, and there are going to be efforts made to influence amendments and different changes. So if you have any specific thoughts, once you have the opportunity to look closer at the bill, we can discuss that and I can keep you abreast of what happens on this piece of legislation. But again, it's something that the counties generally oppose and are looking at how they can mitigate any harm. The third bill of the package is the Energy Resource Adequacy and Planning Act. This one is going to be supported with amendments by MACO, and it focuses on comprehensive energy planning, ensuring that the state understands its current and future energy needs, and creating the Integrated Resource Planning Office that will provide a framework for energy forecasting and modeling. It aims to balance Maryland's energy resources and ensure future infrastructure investment that is in alignment with state and county needs. MACO wants to ensure that counties are included in this discussion and the decision-making process regarding the future energy structure, and believes that this bill is relatively benign, but wants to make sure that as these discussions happen, we're at the table. So that's important. And again, February 28th is the date to save on your calendar. If you have any interest in attending this joint hearing, it's going to be very important, and it's something where officials and stakeholders and anyone else that has an interest in these topics can come and weigh in and try to minimize any negative impacts for Carroll County or the state. So there will be talking points provided, and I'm happy to talk to anyone individually that has an interest so we can figure out the best path forward. Moving on to House Bill 1390, this is an income tax subtraction for theft or fraud losses. This is going to be opposed with a statement by MACO. It allows a subtraction modification for personal property losses due to theft or fraud, subject to some limitations. We have House Bill 1085, which is an expansion of tax exemptions for public housing authorities. And this bill directs all public housing authorities and certain subsidiaries and nonprofit corporations to make payments in lieu of taxes. It allows political subdivisions to set the terms of these payments through agreements. And MACO has recommended to support the bill with amendments to ensure that counties are not required to exempt all property taxation for these entities, and to clarify that counties retain their ability to enter into pilot agreements with housing authorities and their affiliated entities. So the goal is just to try to make this not a mandate. We've got another solar energy bill here. As you can see, Mako is not sure at this point whether it's going to be no position or oppose. This bill, under current law, Maryland offers incentives and tax benefits for certain energy projects, and this bill aims to expand renewable energy options by making some of these projects eligible for tax incentives. Floating solar systems have not been seen in Maryland yet, and they're addressed in this bill. The concerns that were raised in this discussion are that it's a mandate, that amendment would be needed to provide local governments with an option and some incentives rather than making it a requirement. It's also potentially impactful in sensitive areas and could really hurt pristine areas that we'd want to protect. So some of the suggested clarifying amendments would say to make sure that the definition of non-navigable waters is protecting critical environment areas like wetlands, to make sure that they're not harmed if this does move forward.
So this is, I'm sorry, so this is basically like putting solar panels on a lake or something, like it's, that seems,
That's my understanding.
Not necessarily a lake on water that is non-usable, that is non-navigable. This was really discussed during the rural discussion on Monday, and it went from a no position to all the rural counties are opposing this, really because, again, it's PSC getting themselves in front of us and just letting us determine what right looks like. It doesn't affect us. This bill, it's more affecting the Dorchester County and St. Mary's maybe, but
It's the precedent.
it's the precedent. That's correct.
Gotcha.
And so
It's the precedent. And it's also the fact that there's a lot of ambiguity in how the bill's written. So you don't want to start passing bills like this, even if it's not just your county that's impacted,
Right.
because they often take these bills and then, can quickly add in other areas or other issues that might then impact other jurisdictions.
Thank you very much.
Sure. So basically, the lack of consensus, because this kept evolving in conversation, has led us to kind of an ambiguous place. So I'll keep you posted on where this is. But there was a lot of debate on what to do here. And again, as Commissioner Rothstein mentioned, the issue with getting the PSC involved, especially when it's not very specific how that would look, was a very big concern. This next bill is interesting. It's the homestead property tax credit for first-time home buyers. It would basically allow first-time home buyers to maintain the homestead property tax credit of the people that they purchased the home from instead of getting a tax increase. And it would adjust some definitions and make some changes, but basically everyone quickly opposed this bill in Mako. Wasn't very, I can't think of the word.
Wasn't very popular.
That's right.
It was not
sorry.
popular.
I need more coffee this morning. H-Bill 1444 is a bill that actually was opposed by Mako. I have it listed otherwise in the notes because there was a lot of discussion. When I went back this morning and checked, I wanted to clarify that. This bill addresses current practices in some counties where developers can opt to pay a fee instead of constructing moderate income housing units in new residential developments. It allows developers to contribute to a housing fund rather than providing affordable units directly. So this bill seeks to expand or regulate this policy at the state level. Some of the concerns that were raised were that the fee in lieu is often criticized as being too low. So in some areas, it just doesn't cover the issue to meet the demand. There was some support for the bill, particularly in Howard County, but still everyone else seemed to oppose it, so Mako did oppose the bill. Blueprint came up again. In November, the superintendents put together a memo outlining suggestions for how to make some changes to work within what's going on with the blueprint. And this keeps coming up, as you know, and the thing that I'm hearing every time you hear the word blueprint, people are saying, Blueprint is here to stay. Blueprint is here to stay. We have to just work with it. So these next few bills that we're going to talk about are the attempt from some of the members to address some of the concerns in Blueprint in very similar ways. They're very all similar bills, in taking pieces of what was recommended in that memo to make modifications. They aim to just adjust and make changes to the programs and funding structures. And some of the key points in this bill I'll go through now. Career counseling and workforce development are addressed, and funding requirements for the local workforce development board specifically are addressed. Small schools, which is considered fewer than 3,350 students, may waive certain funding mandates if this bill were passed, addressing some of the challenges of the current funding formula. School systems can report funding at the school level instead of the per student level, while still ensuring funding follows the student as required in this bill. The Accountability and Implementation Board would not be able to impose mandates that override local collective bargaining agreements unless specifically stated in the career ladder. Teacher incentives are explored with more effective incentives for higher performing teachers to work in underperforming schools while ensuring that the local needs and collective bargaining agreements are respected. And college and career readiness is something that keeps coming up and is addressed, authorizing local jurisdictions to create income eligibility standards for the college and career readiness program, mandating that students eligible for free and reduced price meals have their costs covered if they meet certain standards by the end of 10th grade. So this was supported with amendments in MACO because the goal is to maintain the career counseling program while allowing local flexibility for counties to move it back to the schools, explore better incentives for high performing teachers, and requiring AIB and MSDE to report on the efficiency of the Blueprint changes. Again, Blueprint is likely to pass, but if there are specific concerns that we're seeing in Carroll County that want to be addressed, we should really make sure we're taking a look. And I think this is another one that if you want to weigh in any way, we can talk about that in more depth. Because it's here, it's not going anywhere right now, at least this session. Moving on to some more energy issues, Senate Bill 807 is a local building energy performance standards. It grants local governments the authority to set stricter building energy standards than Maryland state code, offering more flexibility. It has moved. A second. Oh, you know what? I didn't change. Ignore that slide because I didn't change it. I was tired when I got to that one and I left the points from the other one. So I'll just talk about it. It has local control. Counties can adopt stricter energy performance standards for buildings. Buildings complying with local standards may be exempt from some statewide regulations. And the goal would be to support the bill to enhance local authority over energy performance standards. So MACO supported that one. Now this one should be right. Here we go. So moving on to the BRFA, the Budget Reconciliation and Financing Act. This is a big one. This is where budget adjustments and policy changes outside of the regular appropriation process are made. And it's often used to implement funding shifts, mandate relief, and structural changes that affect the state and local budget. There are a lot of concerns that were raised about how this can affect counties, especially in terms of funding reductions. The focus here is on preserving local funding commitments and looking at predictability and revenue streams, which are all obviously issues that keep coming up because of all of the budgetary issues at the federal and state level right now. Some of the key area concerns that have been brought up over and over again is the teacher pension shift costs. We mentioned this last week, but again, it's a potential $93 million shift to the counties. And, that number could easily grow if they need to fill another $1 billion. They could, it was mentioned that somebody could propose just to shift all of it or more of it, which, keeps exacerbating these problems of where is this coming from. The community college retirement has a proposal, and this has never been a cost share that's been the responsibility of the counties before, so that's a concern. There's also concern about shifting 90% of the state's assessment costs onto the counties, and it's currently a 50-50 split. The Enterprise Zone program is another one on the list, and this provides incentives for businesses to locate in certain areas. Eliminating this support will result in $100 million in Baltimore City, just to give you an example, in the next 10 years. And, it's not something that anyone wants to see, I think. Teacher retirement supplemental grants was on the list, and then special education costs as well, which would be a $25 million burden to local school systems if that got shifted. So MACO wants to support with amendments, which is what they do when they want to try to have an influence at the table, to reject a lot of this and oppose these shifts and try to just preserve what they can, so that burdens are not being shifted to the counties. This next bill aims to address housing shortages and promote solar energy production by utilizing surplus state-owned lands. We talked a little bit about some of these bills, and this is one that MACO is supporting. The counties could benefit from this by having, the available properties for housing and renewable energy initiatives to alleviate local pressure on housing and infrastructure. It's viewed as a practical solution to local housing and energy needs by repurposing on state properties. I think we talked about a similar bill last week. I don't think it was this one. And then there's a lot of different things coming up with voting. And there's a couple that came up in MACO that they're not taking a position on that I'm just touching on today. There's some others that I may bring to you in the future. Earlier bills that were introduced other years sought to impose restrictions on local election structures. These new bills don't seem to aim to limit local government authority over elections. Instead, they propose the creation of a formal grievance procedure for individuals who believe their voting rights are being violated at the local level. And the Attorney General's office would oversee these complaints and ensure appropriate action is taken. Given that they don't undermine local authority, MACO's chosen just to take no position on the bill since they align with previous support for grievance procedures and oversight in past years with other legislation. Collective bargaining, Local Government Employees and Public Employees Relations Act is a bill that MACO is choosing to oppose. This bill would grant collective bargaining rights to local government employees, bringing their rights into alignment with federal standards. It includes provisions for binding arbitration if local governments and employees cannot agree on contract terms. And some of the local governments have raised concerns about budgetary issues, basically because of the impacts on potential conflicts with existing local practices. This bill was opposed by MACO. The Department of Environment, Community Water and Sewage, sorry for that spelling error, Systems, Cybersecurity Planning and Assessments Bill requires local governments in water and sewer sectors to implement costly cybersecurity measures. MACO supports the bill with amendments that would make the cybersecurity measures recommendations instead of mandates, making them optional. The amendments are not included here, like I don't have them all listed, but the whole idea is to make this not a mandate. The Cyber Maryland program revisions would would clarify funding and grant opportunities for local governments and workforce development boards. It transfers oversight of the Cyber Maryland program of the Maryland Department of Labor and updates the funding mechanism for the program. MACO supports this bill because it aligns with other IT-related initiatives and would be a valuable resource, they believe, for local governments. Just have a couple more, guys. We're almost there. Natural Resources Maryland Heritage Areas Authority funding and grants. This bill would support the management of certified heritage areas by providing grants and loans to eligible entities. It modifies the funding structure to ensure no significant impact on local program open space funding. And MACO is taking no position with a letter acknowledging the sponsor's efforts to avoid negatively impacting local programs. And our last one today is the State Retirement Agency report on employer contribution rate impact of teacher salary increases. This is something that would mandate a study to look at the fiscal impact of teacher salary increases in career ladder programs on teacher pension system. This is an important study for understanding the broader financial implications of salary increases on the state's pension system, which is currently facing an unfunded liability. So this would help ensure that the fiscal impact is understood and factored into future budget planning, which is why MACO wants to support this and is tracking this issue. So that is what I have for you today.
Just, Pam, that was a great job. And for those that are listening, or also my colleagues to understand, when we say support with amendments, there are specific amendments tied to the support, recommendation. if those amendments are not provided or they're not accepted, then the support goes to an opposition. You know, and again, most of the amendments that we talk about when supporting have to do with maintaining local control of whatever the bill and legislation may be. But, you know, it's often said, you know, what are the amendments? There's specific amendments. The MACO staff is phenomenal working with the different committees and legislators and staff down in Annapolis to ensure that, you know, they're all on the same sheet of music. And that's just a, you know, kudos to Mr. Sanderson and his entire team, because they do a great job in supporting Carroll County. Okay, I just wanted to share
They
that.
do, and what I think also, what I also think is important to recognize is that they're reaching out to the department heads and different contacts as well as the commissioners and as to everyone to make sure that they're really understanding each issue and how it affects all of the counties, which I think is really impressive because there's so much happening so quickly in Annapolis that they really do a great job of trying to get a comprehensive understanding of how it's really going to impact each county.
Well, Pam, thank you very much for the presentation. That's a lot of work for a single week, so thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Thank you. My pleasure. Thank you all. If you have any questions or anything comes up of interest, just reach out to me. Any letters you want to write, reach out to me, and I'll keep you posted.
Thank you, Pam.
Thank you.
Okay, next item, 2024 Fall Amendment to the Carroll County Water and Sewer Master Plan.
Good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
Morning.
We're here for possible adoption of the 2024 fall amendments to the Carroll County Water and Sewer Master Plan. As you may recall, we were before you on January 30th for a public hearing on the proposed amendments. And you all voted to leave the record open for 10 days, which we've done. We have received no additional public comments on the issue, so we're here for possible adoption of the amendments.
So no,
Of course, any questions you have for us.
so no other comments, nothing, no concerns raised, okay? I'll make a motion to adopt the 2024 Fall Amendment to the 2023 Water and Sewer Master Plan and forward to MDE for final approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
If I might, could I ask for the board to indulge me for a minute, please?
I'm sorry?
Could I ask the board to indulge me for a moment, please? I'd like
I-
to bring up something.
I can't hear you.
I'd like to have a moment, if I could, to bring up a topic, if that would be acceptable.
Sure.
Normally, we would do it in open admin, correct?
We have at times, but we've also at times brought them up in the midst of open session as well, not in open admin.
Sure. What's the topic? I mean, what is it?
Well, as we all know, the news the last few weeks have been quite heavily discussing some decisions we made back in October.
Why don't we do this in open admin and go
Yes.
through our
You prefer
schedule?
to do this in open admin? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we should follow the agenda. Item
least that's
4,
my
budget update for the second quarter.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And good morning.
Just our morning regular update for you to keep you somewhat with us on what's happening during the year. Start at where we think the year is going to end. And right now, we expect 39.5 million at the end of the year for FY25. And that would be, again, the combination of revenue in excess of budget or expenditures below budget. In your plan, $5 million is assumed to be carried into fiscal year 27, leaving 34.5 And as always, we still have a lot of year ahead of us. A lot of things can change. So this is based on what we can see today. Some of the things driving that on the revenue side, property tax is about $4.5 million above what we budgeted. This is pretty much a known number. And $4.5 million is a lot of money, but that's on a revenue of $260 million, so it's not a huge change. Income tax, right now we've received one of our 4 major distributions, and we've received some reconciling distributions. We're $13 million ahead of budget right now, but that is largely from reconciling distributions. So it's about things that happened in previous years, not about what's happening today. The big implication of that is things that are from reconciling distributions don't easily lead us to think that that's about growth in the future. It's more about looking backwards. Recordation, our 3rd largest revenue, but much, much smaller than the other 2. We, right now, are looking to come in on budget. We are struggling a little bit with this. You know, we're changing financial systems. And some information we had available to us on recordation is not as easily available right now. We're trying to work through this, but we don't have the same kind of visibility that we once did. The other revenue that's worth mentioning is our investment income. We expect to be about $5.5 million over budget. When we look at investment income, there's really 2 big drivers. How much money do you have to invest, and at what rate can you invest it? Our portfolio is a little bit bigger than we assumed, and some of that, it's more complicated than this, but you know, we have a couple big projects, State's Attorney Building and Sheriff Headquarters. There's cash on both those projects. We haven't done much spending yet, so the money is available to be invested. On the interest side, we've seen that even though there was a lot of expectation that interest rates were going to start to go down, that we haven't really seen that happening yet, which from a revenue point of view is a good thing for us. Of course, there are lots of other implications of that beyond just our revenue collection. So all the revenues, we're looking at about $25 million in excess of budget. On the expenditure side, much of what is not spent, and this is true in almost every year, is positions that are unfilled. We're seeing some savings in electricity, and this is probably a good time to mention this is looking ahead of us now, but you probably have heard the talk about the significant increases in electric costs we're going to be facing. That will be hitting Carroll County as well, and we're trying to build that into the numbers that you'll be seeing in just a few weeks. And yeah, things like that, higher costs are higher costs, but sometimes touch us in ways that you don't necessarily think about. Like utilities is a big user of electricity. Utilities is an enterprise fund. You set fees for the people who are on the system. So a change in electric costs has a very direct impact to users of our water and sewer systems. Here, and this is a big one. You might remember us talking last year about ambulance billing and where we were going to go. We have a much better handle now on how much we believe we can expect. But the ambulance billing revenue is a restricted revenue. And the only thing that money can be spent for is EMS purposes. So right now in your budget, you have money in EMS that will be moving to this restricted revenue, which means it's freeing up money in the general fund. And we're looking at about $6.5 million that we're gonna move from general fund to the restricted revenue. Now that will carry into the future. You won't see jumps like this again in the future, although the number might still, the amount of revenue might still grow, and the expenditures that we attribute to there might still grow, but not in this kind of big way again.
And Ted, I would imagine, over time that EMS revenue itself would fluctuate because I would imagine some years with EMS are going to be busier than others. And is that something to consider?
Yeah, yes, but my expectation is really that it'll be fairly steady. We see our numbers grow over time, but if you look back over history, you don't see numbers
Okay.
bouncing around a lot. Any one station might see more or less, but I think it just kind of evens out over the county.
So maybe like I guess very small fluctuations, but overall the trend is up.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Excuse me, just one more second on the EMS billing. Can you explain exactly what's taking place again? I thought we're taking EMS billing money, that's Medicare, Medicaid money that we're recouping,
This is not about the Medicaid part yet.
Okay.
That's still ahead of us.
okay?
This is just EMS billing. So if you are transported, then you have to pay. and
Okay,
this- so-
okay.
yeah.
That's the 6 million you're talking about.
Right, well,
Because now that's coming to Westminster, the DFEMS, because we are officially manning, we have people inside of all these stations.
yes.
Okay,
And there was uncertainty about how much revenue we could count on. So the expenditures were largely budgeted in the general fund, just as they had been in the past. Now that we have a better idea of how much revenue, we know how much of the expenditures we can attach to that, which means it won't be paid in the general fund now. Okay, did that get you there?
yeah, I just want to ensure that the money's staying within DFEMS, obviously, because
Oh,
it
yes.
has to be,
It has to, yes.
but that money can also be used to fund, the general increase in the operating budget as well for DFEMS going forward.
Okay, are you talking about the,
Maybe I'm getting the EMS billing and the Medicare, Medicaid funding confused.
okay, it can't be used for general expenditures of DFEMS.
Exactly. That's my point I wanted to
Okay.
reiterate, yeah, to
Yes.
people listening.
Yeah, right. No, we are very careful about identifying expenditures that are appropriate for this use.
Okay.
Reserve for contingencies is largely unspent. We have not assumed any savings from storm snow removal at this point. We've had a lot going on. We haven't had big snows, but we've had a number of events. And it can be very frustrating from a budget point of view because you end up spending sometimes just as much money on a half inch of snow as you do on 5 inches of snow. So we see total savings, our total expenditures under budget of approximately $14 million. So we had unassigned of $44.8 million in FY24. You used 32.5 of that in the FY25 budget, leaving 12.2 from FY24. The FY24 surplus is $22 million. Current estimate for 25 is $34.5 million. If that plays out as we have it right now, that would leave you with almost $69 million of unassigned fund balance. Okay, that's what we had to give to you today, but if there's any questions or anything you want to follow up on, we can take care of that.
When is the next distribution for the tax?
Right at the end of this month.
Okay, so just a couple weeks.
Do you feel like this is totally out of the ordinary? Or I know nothing's consistent, but is this pretty much like most years turn out, or is this different? And is this a trend, or too early to tell?
Expenditure side, this is probably a bit more than we would typically expect at this time. That mostly be about this EMS question, because that's just not something that normally would come up. On the revenue side, I'd say this is a bigger expectation than in most years. Sometimes you have property tax adding a good bit and income tax not, or the other way around. This year it looks like we'll have both of them adding. And again, reminding you that income tax is mostly about what happened in other years, not about what's ahead of us. So I'm sure we've been here before, but this number for this time of year is probably bigger than I would typically expect.
Questions, comments?
Thank you for keeping us on top of this, both of you.
Approval to submit application acceptance of award for the building department grant.
Morning, Commissioners. Brian Boki, Director, Department of Public Works. I'm here with Doug Brown and Jason Green, Deputy Directors, and we're here to talk about a grant application for a full building generator. A couple big acronyms that I'll try to get out of the way in the beginning. Some of you may know them. I'm not a FEMA background, so I'll give them my best go, but these gentlemen are here to support me and answer any questions you may have. So the grant we're looking at is a building resilient infrastructure and communities grant. So from here on out, it's a BRIC grant. Grants are the funding is provided by FEMA and administered by the Maryland Department of Emergency Management, MDEM. And they're through their Hazard Mitigation Assistance Program, designed to increase resiliency and public safety, reduce injury, loss of life, and reduce damage and destruction to property, critical services, facilities, and infrastructure. Currently, the county office building has a generator that's about 20 years old that powers just about a third of the building. Some of the critical services that are housed here at the county office building include a hub for county government services and partner agencies, a backup answering point for our 911 office, backup emergency operations system, and any lapse could significantly impact the services of Carroll County. The proposed application estimated for $1.045 million for the grant, associated equipment, and the install. This grant does have a 25% match from the county, so our portion would be around $261,000. At this time, I'll open it up for any questions, comments.
So the current generator powers 1/3 of the building because it's 20 years old, or wasn't strong enough to handle, when we bought it, wasn't strong enough to handle the entire building, or?
So I'll take a first stab.
Okay.
I think when the generator was purchased and designed, it was just for the critical infrastructure in this building. So it primarily serves a lot of the servers, the IT equipment, and the 911 backup center in the basement of this building. And then I guess it was before the expansion. It was just in the.
Right. And so over the years, as the building has grown, the generator of the power plant obviously has not. And also, as with all these types of power plants, you start to reach end of life on what you can and cannot do parts-wise as it comes. We see that throughout our history in all different locations, not just here. But it did its job then. It's just not doing its job now. And I think many county employees, as well as you all, can remember when, we've lost power
Back in the summer, right?
a number of times, that being one, and some of the issues that it causes, not only here at the county or county office building, but throughout the county. When power drops off, Director Ripper is then dealing with, wow, we supply the library, we supply the Board of Ed, all the things come through this main hub here. And at a point when they don't work, it has compounding impacts.
So the county match request would be for $261,250. Is that within the current budget? Would we have to pull that out of reserve for contingencies? Where would we be expecting to find that?
Sure, yes. So right now, this money would be required in FY27. So the grant match, we would look at an award probably this spring, I think was the timeline from FEMA. Then we would have 90 days to accept. So it would fall in FY27 for this funding. So we would work with the budget office providing your approval to submit, providing that we won the award for this money. And yeah, I'll feel Ted lurking. So
You feel him lurking?
So we have already budgeted for what would have been a like-for-like generator replacement. So we were already planning to replace the generator, and I believe we have budgeted $180,000 or something along those lines. So if we move ahead with this, that portion is covered. We would just need to identify the next $80,000 or so. But as Brian said, that would be in the FY27 budget, so we can handle that as part of a budget process if you approve this.
Well, I mean, to me, it seems to make sense, and if anybody has any other thoughts or questions about it, feel free to disagree with me. I mean, the other thing I guess I'm thinking about is that 20 years ago, we didn't have the same kind of reliance as we do on electronics and digital information and operations. And I remember the day back in the summer when so much of the building went down and we were scrambling to carry out even routine daily operations. So if we're already preparing for this. Right. So if we're already preparing for this in a future budget, and we're prepared to accept that cost, and plus having the if we get the grant, right, that would be fantastic. So I'm certainly willing to take a risk on this.
I'll move the commissioners approve the submission of the Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities BRIC grant application to MDEM, as well as accept the grant funds if awarded.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, acceptance of a grant for the Department of Veterans and Military Families Program.
Good morning to both of you.
We are here this morning to get your acceptance of a $10,000 grant from the Maryland Veterans Trust Fund towards our Veteran Shuttle. The MVTF reached out to me for some history about our program and some ridership statistics about a month ago. After learning more about our shuttle, they graciously decided to grant us the $10,000 in support of our great service that the shuttle provides. This is a one-time grant. There are no match money from the county. Our average monthly cost for the shuttle is just over $6,500. So this $10,000 will cover about a month and a half of operating expenses. Any questions?
I'll move the commissioners accept the FY25 Maryland Veterans Trust Fund grant award.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
And thank you to the trust fund and thank you for your work in getting them the information.
Thank you.
Approval to purchase pump upgrades at the Farm Museum and Courthouse Annex.
Say that 10 times fast. Morning, gentlemen.
Morning. The Office of Procurement, in cooperation with the Bureau of Facilities, requests your approval to purchase 2 Gorman pumps and accessories for the Farm Museum and 2 Gorman pumps and accessories for the Courthouse Annex from Envirep Incorporated in the amount of $241,070. This is a single source purchase, with Envirep being the only authorized retailer of Gorman pumps in this region. This amount is approved in the fiscal year 25 budget.
Morning, Commissioners. Bureau of Facilities will be upgrading a total of 4 pumps, 2 at each location. The current pumps are over 20 years old. While they still remain in operation, the cost to maintain these pumps are increasingly going up, and even getting the parts to find for replacement has become more challenging over time. Envirep currently, today, holds the contract to service and maintain these pumps at the Farm Museum and at the Courthouse Annex. They've been holding that contract now with us for at least 12, 13 years. So they're very familiar with these pumps, and this is going to be replacing a Gorman-Rupp pump with a Gorman-Rupp pump, which we had very success rating with them.
And just for clarification, the pumps do what?
They will take the sewage from a load line area out at the Farm Museum and pump it upstream to the main. And then over at the Courthouse Annex, down in the holding cells in the basement area, they'll take the sewer down there and pump it up to the main to get it up out of the load line areas.
Thank you. Motion to approve the purchase of 4 Gorman pumps and accessories for the Farm Museum and Courthouse Annex to Envirep Incorporated in the amount of $241,070.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Energy Management Control.
The Office of Procurement, in cooperation with the Bureau of Facilities, requests your approval to encumber funds for the energy management control services of various county-owned buildings to Johnson Controls per the term contract in the amount of $222,510.50. This will encumber funds for the remainder of fiscal year '25.
So Commissioners, Johnson Controls has been supplementing the Bureau of Facilities preventive maintenance program for over 20 years. They provide maintenance to large-scale projects such as boilers, chillers, cooling towers, pumps in our mechanical rooms. This is a contract for all the 26 county buildings, including the 6 libraries that fall under this contract. During this contract, they do reports, make sure we are getting the best of our energy use out of these buildings and the best bang for the dollar.
So, and just for my own clarification on this too, and I don't know, maybe Roberta, maybe you can answer. When we talk about encumbering funds, is that similar to appropriating them or designating them? Is it a...
Yeah, it's sort of designating them to be spent on this, for this purpose.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just wanted to make sure. Thank you. Motion to approve the encumbrance of funds for the Energy Management Control Service to Johnson Controls per term contract 12143 in the amount of $222,510.50.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further questions, discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Just to be clear, since you used the word appropriated, all these funds are appropriated. This is really just a procurement step to make sure that because we pay on an installment sort of basis, you know, depending on use, that the board is aware. Does that make
Okay,
sense?
so it's so taking what's appropriated and encumbering what's been appropriated. Okay, thank you very much.
We really use it for tracking purposes as well. That way, if y'all have any questions about where did this money go, we can always provide all that tracking information. So before we go locking it in, we just want to get your approval on it.
Awesome, thank you very much.
So there's nothing inappropriate here.
Because it's appropriated.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Chesapeake Employers Insurance for Carroll County Volunteer Emergency Services.
Morning, everyone.
Good morning. Morning, Chief.
Morning.
Okay. The Office of Procurement, in cooperation with the Department of Fire and EMS, requests spending authority approval for the monthly insurance payments to Chesapeake Employers Insurance in the amount of $107,938. The policy covers the Carroll County Volunteer Emergency Services Associates. The amount of this request will pay the policy in full until the next renewal period. This amount is approved in the fiscal year '25 budget.
So this will continue coverage from Chesapeake Insurance, which provides workers' comp coverage. Excuse me. And this will cover the 14 fire companies, both operational and administrative activities.
Motion to approve the spending authority for Chesapeake Employers Insurance for CC Visa in the amount of $107,938.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chief.
Contract renewal, Command Central Vault, cloud-based storage.
Morning, Commissioners.
Morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
The Office of Procurement, in cooperation with the Department of Technology Services, requests your approval to renew the contract with Motorola for Command Central Vault cloud-based storage for the state's attorney in the amount of $117,547.50. This amount is approved in the FY25 budget.
Morning.
That's right. Hey, Mark. I'll move the commissioners renew the contract with Motorola for Command Central Vault, cloud-based storage for the state's attorneys in the amount of $117,547.50.
Second.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you, commissioners. Have a good day.
You too. Thank you.
Do we have any callers for public comment?
I have no callers at this moment, sir.
Do we have anyone here for public comment? Admin session open.
So, we've all had a lot of interesting conversations and letters and emails and articles this past week or so regarding the respite care in Carroll County. That was something that came up before us in October. The four of us, Commissioner Rothstein was absent from that meeting. From all the information I can find and recollect, it was not planned, at least to any of our opinions, to be a decision at that moment. It was more, we all believed it to be an informational session. Fast forward, obviously there's been a contract that's been signed, but when you start looking into some of this contract as well as some of the discussions of caring for Carroll County residents, the majority of the beds are not even for Carroll County residents. They're selected for folks from Sinai. So this doesn't serve Carroll County. We also have serious concerns from a wide array of elected officials, be they the sheriff, the state's attorney, the chief of police of Westminster elected. And, as some of my colleagues up here consistently say, trust the experts. Well, they're the experts when it comes to safety. I'm not going to argue with any of them. I understand Carroll Hospital. I appreciate, Tammy Black and Access Carroll's perspective on what they do in our community. They do a wonderful job. I do not believe this is a legitimate fit for downtown Westminster. And with that, I'm going to make the motion that the Board of County Commissioners rescind the lease agreement with Carroll for the Respite Care Center effective immediately.
Second.
So I have a motion and a second. Any questions or discussion?
Well, yeah. I mean, this is,
Can I interject? This should probably be an agenda item for next week. Move
Okay.
to put it on next week's agenda and take a vote at that
I have a
point.
question then, Mr. Burke. This was never an open public hearing when it was brought to us in October. This was not, it was not.
No,
Hold on a second. This was not an open hearing, sort of like we did in reference to the rescue mission, which was a public hearing, number one.
Correct, but it was.
Hold on. Number two, pushing it out a week to allow additional information from other parties that have already given us information, or where are we looking to go here?
No, it's to put it, to comply with the Open Meetings Act. You took action at an open meeting several months ago, and now you're trying to rescind that, for right or wrong, at a meeting that was not advertised to the public. Certainly,
Okay.
you could
Let
take
me-
whatever action
Let
you
me
want.
ask you one other question, that we, as a board, the past 2+ years, have made actions from this dais, multiple members of us, and approved things, be it putting in moratoriums that were not advertised to the public. Did that not break Open Meetings Act by possible definition then?
It did not, because it was not a surprise to anybody that you were taking this
It
action.
was not? The public knew?
The public, if you're.
They had no knowledge. We hadn't even discussed it.
Commissioners, I'm just pointing this out.
I'm just asking the question from a legal perspective, because if the five of us did not have a conversation about a moratorium and it was not advertised to the public, how is that any different than this?
And
can I just inject something? Because I would like to have this conversation, because you're interested in having this conversation. And if you're saying you respect the experts that, are concerned with safety and security in our community, I 100% respect that and agree with you. If you take that to our legal advisor and say, I respect the legal advisor for his advice, but you're picking and choosing.
I'm not picking and
Well,
choosing.
then-
I'm
but
asking for an
just saying-
answer.
And he's saying, I think.
I'm just
to
asking for a
wait and
comparable,
put it-
because if one is one,
I'm
the
just
other should be
saying,
equal.
he is recommending to us to put it on the agenda for next week, and I'm like, if I want to listen to the experts, like you said, and respect them, then I want to respect our legal advisor or someone else that we're putting our resources in.
No,
So
I
if
don't
he's
disagree
saying-
with you.
If he's saying, make a decision next week or put it on the agenda, that's fine. I don't want to stop a conversation of what we're going to have, but, you know, I don't want to pick and choose on taking our legal advisor's advice, especially when we're talking about open meetings. We're very good in our history about adhering to Open Meetings Act. And if there is a perception of violating Open Meetings Act, I want to get away from that. And if that's what our legal advisor is saying, then let's do it. I don't want to stop this conversation.
No, and I appreciate that, and I don't disagree with you in regards to the Open Meetings Act. But again, a word I've used for over 2+ years sitting here is consistency. We wing things at times, and there's no nicer way to put it, because we do not have formal rules. Now, I know Commissioner Kyler's not interested in Robert's rules. He said that a month or so ago, and I understand, and that's fine. But my question...
Because I understand Robert's rules is why I'm not interested. Do we have written minutes?
But
Do we want to
but I-
approve them every meeting?
But I
we
do have
wanna
a...
Blindly follow them?
But I do have a question, though, sir. The Board of Education follows Robert's rules
Somewhat.
according to them across the
Somewhat.
street,
If
according
I
to their...
can, if I can interject.
No, let's focus on one thing at a time.
let's-
Okay,
yeah,
I think we're still
we got
debating.
things going
I've got one question about this. I don't quite understand what significant can happen between now and next Thursday if we put this on the agenda and follow open meetings and do it properly.
I'm not
Is there
against
anything
following
that's
that.
gonna-
I'm just asking the question.
would-
So
I
why are
would-
we not being consistent? That's the question I have.
I would offer this reasoning, and obviously we all respect Mr. Burke's legal opinions on this matter, but I don't see why we would have to wait another week to discuss actions that the board took back in October. We're not discussing a new situation. We're not discussing a new issue. We're revisiting something that occurred back in October. I've made my thoughts clear on the current lease or contract we have regarding this issue. Maybe I'm being subjective, but I have reviewed the lease. I think some of you have as well. And what's in the lease doesn't completely comport with the discussion we had last October. Furthermore, when we had the discussion in October, we had a motion for a letter of approval. I don't even know if the issue of lease was mentioned. It has become clear to me, at least, that this lease, as it exists today, and it's only about 15 days old, is not in the best interest of the county. In addition to the town itself and all those other issues, as a county commissioner, I'm looking at this lease, I'm looking at the issues that were discussed, I'm looking at the issues that were not discussed in October, and I'm seeing something that I don't think is good for the county. So the motion was to terminate the lease. I think technically it would be a termination letter from the county to the individuals who are have the lease right now. I think that's what the motion is, but I just don't know why we'd have to wait to discuss
think-
something that we went over in October.
I think if we follow the intent of what was discussed in October, and, you know, from that intent was to move forward with developing this, you know, scenario or operations of respite care, you know, and we'll have that conversation. But I think following that intent and moving, you know, doing this, the lease was, you know, developed over a few months in a relatively short amount of time. It happened to be signed in January. I didn't even know, you know, it was signed. I mean, I think maybe there's administrative issues we got to talk about when it comes to developing a lease, and I think that's appropriate. But let's start one thing at a time. And the first thing is, should a decision be made in open admin today, or should it be put on the agenda for a decision to be made next week or at a scheduled time? That's the first item of business. The second item of business then is having this conversation on why, you know, you believe the lease should be broken, or why you believe that respite care doesn't belong in Westminster or whatever. But that's the second part. Let's get through the first part. And your initial comments were, to me, spot on. You adhere and listening to the sheriff and the state's attorney and those and the chief of police here in Westminster, and you respect that. I'm just saying, if you do that, then if the legal advisor's saying to do something, you either got to say, yeah, I got it and I respect it, or I respect it and I'm not going to adhere to it, or something. But that's my only
I hear
issue.
your point there, and just to backtrack for a second, you talked about the administrative side of leases. We have done multiple leases, and I won't get into the specifics today because we don't need to, but as some of us know, there were leases that the five of us had to be heavily involved with that have no level of concern for a community to the length of this one. This lease was not something, to my knowledge, I think I can speak for at least myself, and the rest of you can answer. Any of us saw this lease, because if you go back to Commissioner Garen's statements, it wasn't a lease in October. It was a discussion to move forward.
No,
There was no motion.
I don't disagree with you.
So then how did we get to a lease is my question.
I don't disagree.
And how did we
Listen,
get to a lease?
I don't disagree. I'm just saying, let's do the first things first. And if you want to make this into a decision, for the next step forward, then let's put it on the agenda to allow the community to be aware that this decision is to be made, to either
And we just got,
break a lease or
and
do
we just
something.
got a response from the leasee yesterday that I'm not sure everybody's even looked at. I think a week would give us time to gather all the facts. I personally do think there's a problem with this lease, and I think, again, I've talked procedures for 2 years. We don't seem to want to talk about them. I think any legal document that comes out of here probably should be initialed by the county administrator and the county attorney. And I think, unfortunately, whoever signed this has proven that they can't proofread a lease and sign it properly. We have some issues other than what's going on with this lease.
Oh, I would agree completely with you
I think we
there.
need to address them all, and I think the proper way to do would be put it on the agenda next week. I think everybody knows, including the people leasing the property, the grant people, everybody, they know we're talking about it. So I don't think the world's going to end on Monday because we didn't vote today. And I think if this is all this important, why wouldn't we want to do it with the facts?
And then, so like I said, step one, get it on the agenda, but I don't want to stop the conversation that you want to bring up now. And that's really, it's not about the lease, it's about the intent of establishing a respite care in this building and understand the vision of it and have that conversation. So I want to do that.
I think the question, though, would be, if we're going to potentially move this to next Thursday, why have the conversation today?
Oh, then if you don't want to,
Because the
that's fine.
reality would be, since we want to leave this open to everybody, why have it today
Okay.
and then have a secondary conversation on
fine.
Thursday with any other parties?
It's fine. I just didn't want to shut you down. by
No,
not having
that's
it
no,
official.
that's not going to happen. But I'm
I
just
agree
saying, it
with
doesn't
you.
make any logical sense
Okay.
to me to have two conversations.
Okay.
So look, if I may, I'm sorry, I've been quiet so far. I have a lot of concerns about this as well, and I want to talk about it, whether it's today or whether the motion maker decides it's next week. But what I do want to ask Tim, because we've still not resolved, I guess, the topic of open meetings and whether this is appropriate for today or appropriate for next week. If we chose to vote on this today and say it passed, right? What are the potential outcomes that would occur from doing this?
I'd rather not give you legal, if you want to close for legal advice, we can. I'd rather not do that at a public meeting that's come back to bite us in the past.
All right. So
Yeah, go ahead.
no.
No, I appreciate where the discussion is. This is how we should be discussing this, but I will reiterate, I think it is completely in this board's purview during open admin to review previous decisions, and that's what we're doing. So I still, again, with all due respect, I still don't understand why we wouldn't do that right now. We will do it in other situations when we have to. This isn't about bylaws or Robert's Rules of Order right now necessarily.
But when you award a contract or rescind a contract, it has to be done in accordance with the Open Meetings Act. And in accordance with the Open Meetings Act, it has to be an agenda item when you're taking one of those.
Okay, but Tim, because Mike, I agree with you that, and that's where I was going is, if a decision was made in October to move forward with an approval or whatever it is, that is what we can do and have that conversation. That's why I was saying, if you want to have that open conversation, we can do that. If it's specifically tied to an action that was taken, like a lease, I want to make sure that we do it appropriately, you know, and if that's what our legal advisor is saying is do this next week or whenever scheduled, then that's what I want to make sure I do. And it's not like I've asked this question earlier, it's just this is how we do leases. And as far as legal advice, doing it enclosed is appropriate, so.
So would like to pursue that just a little bit further about the idea of canceling a lease, right? Canceling a contract. So over the last couple of weeks, as all of this news has been circulating, I went back and I watched the October 17th meeting that we had, right? The four of us were here. And in particular, I paid attention toward the end. You know, I think my colleagues up here brought up the motion that was made. And so I went back and I watched I've watched different parts. I've watched the entire presentation, but I've also watched different parts of it. And specifically, I paid attention to the motion that I made back in October. And the motion that I made was for a letter of commitment, not a lease, but a letter of commitment. And so I asked myself, okay, well, how did I get to that motion? And this is about the 2 hour, 1 minute, 2 hour, 2 minute mark. So I go back a little bit further. And there's some discussion with Commissioner Kyler and with the people who were presenting that day. And Commissioner Kyler asks, so you're looking today for a letter of support or commitment, not necessarily a lease. And it was confirmed that they were looking for a letter that day. And so the recommended motion, as Commissioner Kyler read it that day, was for a letter. And so the motion that I made that day was for a letter. And as I think Commissioner Gordon had pointed out a minute ago, how did we get to a point where, you know, we direct a letter to be drawn up in support? The request is for a letter. The recommended motion is for a letter. My motion is for a letter. The second was for a letter. The vote was unanimous for a letter. How did we get from a letter of support to a lease that was signed and executed without any of us seeing it? So I guess to what my colleagues are saying, you know, I'm confused. I really am. You know, not just how we got to an actual lease that was signed and executed from a direction from this body, a unanimous direction, requesting a letter. How did we get from a letter to a lease? And so if that lease is not valid because we did not request it, then I don't see why we couldn't do away with that today.
So my thoughts are, and this is from an outsider looking in because I wasn't at that meeting, was the intent of this letter of, you know, action developed, morphed, changed into a lease. And was that right or wrong? Again, we need to have that conversation. And in order to have that conversation and take that away, what the recommended advice is that we have this conversation next week. We have pushed things down a week, saying, hey, let's discuss next week. Let's do our homework, because I know that there are, you know, opportunities for leadership on every side, every corner to get engaged. And I want to make sure that they have that opportunity. And then let's openly have this conversation. And then we put it on the agenda and we make a decision. We can make, as a side note about a lease, I'm not that worried. It's our building. I mean, that's not the worry. It's the intent of the operations. That's what I'm focused on. And that's that 10 beds, 18 beds, X amount of dollars, Carroll County, Baltimore City. Those are the conversations, you know, what is the intent, you know, to be met. But I think that's why if we want to have that conversation, that's fine, and I agree. If you want to wait till next week instead of doing it twice, that's fine too. I just want to respect the fact that you brought it up.
No, and I appreciate that.
So,
I think the other concern that's obviously come out of all this, though, is to Commissioner Vigliotti's point. How does a letter of support become a lease? They're not the same thing. Words have meanings and they matter, be it legal or anything else in life. So I think that needs to be looked into internally and addressed, because I hate to say it, if this has occurred here once, not to say it's occurred ever again, but how do we not know that? And I think that's a great question we have to look into.
And I agree, and that's what I was gonna say. We now have two issues. Access Carroll and what's happening there, but how did this whole decision
I
come
agree.
about? And how did we end up here? And we probably need a closed legal session and some more items on the open.
We have to staff it appropriately. If we moved, again, if we morph from an intent of doing something into a lease and a step was taken, and you agree or believe that that step should not have been taken, then that's an internal
Oh,
staffing that
absolutely,
we've
it's
got to have
internal.
that conversation.
Oh, absolutely.
I'd rather do that enclosed with legal advice than
Oh, I don't
open
disagree with
unbiased.
that. I
So-
don't disagree with that at all.
So my recommendation, and I know a motion and second been put out there, is table, I don't know what the right word is to take those away, get it on the agenda for next week because, that's your intent is as soon as possible. And then do our homework, come back, and it'll be a scheduled time. That's my recommendation.
So if I could say real quick, I mean, look, after this whole, whatever you want, being polite about it, a morphing from one thing into the other, without our consent, right? That goes to the heart of this issue. We're the governing body up here. We directed one thing, we got something else. So this something else that we got isn't what we expected. So in my mind, and Tim, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, either that contract does not actually exist because that's not what we directed to happen, or if it does exist in some amorphous way, it's directly to the point, why can't we just vote to rescind it today? Because it doesn't actually exist, or it exists in kind of this nether region between what we said we wanted and what we got.
And I think we need some legal advice first, and I think the worst thing we could do.
The motion maker and the second maker to determine what you want to do.
That
but-
was my question before. Are you willing to withdraw your motion and say, I want this on next week's agenda?
But let me be clear about this, though, right? If this vote were to happen today, I would vote to rescind this contract. If it happens next week, I'm going to vote to rescind that contract. Just to be completely transparent with everybody, whether it happens today or next week, I'm voting to rescind.
Well, I would have to say, I think this has been a complete legal goat rope, if anybody understands the definition of that word, but that's a whole other story. I will table this till next week on the conditions of one thing. I would like to see this as the first item on the agenda, and I would like to have a closed meeting from staff regarding what has occurred here regarding the lease prior to that meeting. So I'll table it based off of that, if we're all acceptable to that.
Does that need a second, the tabling?
I don't think it needs,
I think that's fine.
just
That's fine.
withdraw and.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's appropriate. I mean, do our homework and get moving.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Again, I still don't feel as anything's going to change in a week. And by taking action today, we're giving the parties involved time to figure out what they might want to do next in terms of alternate plans or something to that effect. All we're doing is leaving a lease intact for another 7 days that it sounds to me that at the very least, the five of us have questions about. So that concerns me as well. So is there nothing we can do in the interim? There should be something we can do in the interim to make sure that the leasing party understands that they shouldn't move forward with anything at this point.
I think our discussion in open session, if that didn't do that for them, we can maybe hit them in the head with a hammer.
I would hope in good faith.
I think we've covered that.
Yeah.
I can appreciate that. I hope, I don't know if that would be enough. I know the legal world's very black and white. I understand what you mean, though. I think that over the past week, there's been enough information out and emails out that if that other party doesn't already know that, they should by now. But that still doesn't sort of give me a legal warm and fuzzy, if you will. There should be something we can do.
Would you like to?
In the interim, at least, at the very least.
Commissioner Guerin, would you like to make a motion to direct the attorney to tell them not to do anything pending a decision?
I don't know what the legal term for that would be. I don't know, there's got to be something
Well, I don't think,
in the
hold on.
toolbox.
you know, we went from goat ropes to warm and fuzzies. I think directing
said it
our
was a-
staff to do the work that we're asking for is good enough.
Yeah, I
And
think
I think that's
your
what,
words made
that's what
that
you
happen.
are doing. And also, I think if nobody knows what's going on in this conversation right now, outside of this I mean, there, I would be like completely dumbfounded. There's too much at stake. There's too much, you know, there's too much responsibility that's going on. There's a lot of money involved in this. There's organizations, there's communities of interest. I mean, I think a lot of people are looking at this. I just want to adhere to, you know, how to do this appropriately and not miss the intent of what was established in October to where we are today, and then move forward. And that's the conversation I want to have openly, and I can wait till next week, and that's fine. So that's my thoughts.
So first on the agenda for next week.
Yeah, it was already had.
I'm just-
It was already mentioned.
Yep, just reiterating.
So we good? Any,
Could we recess for 5 minutes to have a conversation about this with you? Would that be appropriate?
Well, I
We
think
could go into closed.
I didn't,
No, it would have to be closed for
yeah.
legal advice or
think-
something to that effect.
I mean, okay.
Are you making a motion to go into closed for 5 minutes?
For legal advice.
For legal advice?
Yeah, I motion we go into closed, closed for legal advice for 5 minutes.
Second.
Any further discussion or questions? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
No, whatever. I'll go into
4 to 1.
closed.
Okay.
Sure.
closed for legal, and we're done doing that, so I now need a motion to reopen our open session meeting.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion, a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Is there any more open session admin?
No, sir.
We need calendars.
And there's no more public comment?
No.
And
Well,
It's totally up to you.
you'd have to fill out a card and give it to Roberta. We're at the appropriate place for open comment.
But you can do the card later,
Yeah, that's fine.
just
Yeah.
to keep things moving if you're
Tammy, you
okay
want
with
to come
that.
up, talk,
You
and
can
then
do the
fill it
card
out?
later.
And then Wanda needs to head back.
Yep.
I think she didn't like leave the building because of me, did
You
she?
probably did.
Never know.
Okay.
Well, good morning. I'm Tammy Black, the Executive Director of Access Carroll, and thank you for letting me speak at the last minute here. I know that there's been a lot of conflict and confusion and misinformation being shared about our proposed medical respite program. I'm just here to advocate and speak on behalf of just the wellness that we seek for our community, the collaboration that we've always been blessed to have in this community would be expanded in this capacity. We've, back in 2020, the county commissioners actually came to Access Carroll, approached us, and said, would you do a temporary emergency medical respite during the COVID pandemic? We did that. We served 39 individuals who were literally on the streets of Westminster. We had a very close partnership with the Westminster City Police at that time because we housed these folks in the middle school near our office. And so they were able to come there multiple times a day and partner with us. We kept, even though it was in a gym of a school, we kept it very organized, efficient, accountable, clean, safe. We kept everything very transparent in terms of our community's leadership team, so they knew what was going on. And I just want to say, give us a chance to do that again. Let us show again that we can demonstrate excellence with this project at the distillery building. It's a small, confined group of people at any given time, and we believe that we can truly make a difference in our community. Access Carroll has been in existence for 20 years, and we've been able to demonstrate that we're accountable to you. We're accountable to anybody who asks, for that matter. I'm very transparent with data, transparent with our outcomes. I don't share patient information, of course. That's confidential, and we honor the individual's right to privacy and relationship to their healthcare provider. But the medical respite program will help folks that are homeless get into stabilized recuperative care and then have intensive case management that wraps around them for housing and other stability things so that they're not in that kind of variable, volatile situation. So anyway, I just want to say that, I've spoken with some of you. Many of you have been at the office. If you haven't, I'd encourage you to come out to the office and just see the model that we represent, see what we do. I can, if you want patient testimonies or things like that, I'm happy to recruit those individuals or families for you to be able to interview and talk to. That we would never do anything. I give you my word, I would never do anything to hurt the community that I've lived in my whole life. I raised my children here. My children work in this community. They're now adults. And we love this community. We would never do anything to disrespect or dishonor or violate the precious things that we hold dear in Carroll County or in Westminster. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Wanda, are we ready for our agenda review?
Good
Morning, Wanda. Nice to see you as always.
Okay, Monday, February 17th, county offices are closed. There's an evening in Annapolis with Carroll County delegation, Commissioners Kyler and Rothstein.
Wanda, please add me to that also.
Okay.
On Tuesday, Planning and Zoning, Commissioner Gordon. Veterans Advisory, Commissioners Gordon and Kyler. Operating Budget Approval Board Meeting, BOE Boardroom at 4 p.m. On Wednesday, excuse me, MACO Tax Subcommittee, MACO Education Subcommittee, MACO Legislative Committee, Master Plan Open House for District 1 in Tonytown, Commissioner Vigliotti, Historical Society of Carroll County Board Meeting, Commissioner Gordon, Carroll Community College Board of Trustees Meeting, Commissioner Kyler, Emergency Service Advisory Council, Commissioner Guerin. On Thursday, 8 a.m. closed admin, 9 a.m. open. And we now have a new item 1. And item 2 will be priority Carroll. Item 3 will be legislative update. Item 4 will be pension presentation. Next item, briefing discussion, request to go to public hearing of text amendment, Chapter 155 and Chapter 56, concurrency management report, inmate medical services, spending authority, inmate food service, public comment, admin open, agenda review at 2 p.m. The Carroll County Board of Commissioners are meeting with Westminster Cemetery Board. I will be there. Is anybody else
I'll
attending?
be in attendance as that as well.
I'm sorry, what, I missed that. Where is that at?
Westminster Cemetery
Oh,
Board.
down at the bottom. Okay, I didn't see
Yeah.
that.
And Friday, Saturday shows open, and Sunday is Commissioner Vigliotti's podcast. The following week, Monday, February 24th, public hearing, Spring Valley Solar at Pleasant Valley Fire Hall, Commissioner Kyler. At 7 p.m., Union Bridge Town Council meeting, Commissioner Vigliotti. Tuesday shows open.
Real quick, I apologize, Commissioner. So obviously I can't make that public hearing because I'll be at the Union Bridge for that Enough thing. Would you like me to submit, I don't know, like a written comment for you or something that you could?
Sure, if you
Okay.
want, yeah.
Right. I'll write a letter.
Yeah, yeah.
Write a letter.
Yeah. Tuesday shows open, Wednesday, 9:30, MACO Tax Subcommittee, MACO Education Subcommittee, MACO Legislative Committee, Carroll County Public Library, Commissioner Gordon at 7 p.m. On Thursday, 8 a.m., closed admin, 9 a.m. open, annual proclamation for FFA week, legislative update, grant submission and accept award, Office of Overdose Response, annual transportation plan, public comment, admin open, agenda review at 1 p.m., master plan open house at North Carroll Library, Commissioner Kyler. Friday shows open. Saturday, 9 a.m., celebrating American History Expo, Commissioners Gordon and Vigliotti. And on Sunday, Commissioner Kyler gets to do the podcast.
I think March 1st at Expo, bear with me. Yeah, I'm attending. I'm a judge.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't know if y'all are judge, but yeah. So I'll be there also at 9 a.m.
Okay.
I didn't realize.
Are you going to wear a robe, like a
No,
judge's robe?
absolutely not.
No?
I'm gonna wear, no, forget it. All good. Yeah, but I have it on my calendar.
Did we do okay, Wanda?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Wanda.
Do we want to do a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion, a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Yeah.
You want us to just stay here and keep doing it?
I just, yeah, opposed.
4-1, we're adjourned. Oh,